You were born in Wadsworth, Ohio. You spent some time there with your mom and grandparents, and then you ended up moving to the West Coast to Washington State, where your dad's in the Air Force. Can you kind of talk about what it was like growing up in that Air Force environment and how it's kind of shaped you today?
Not only my dad, but pretty much like both of my uncles and my grandfather served some time in the military. My dad was 20 years in the Air Force. Both my uncles were 20 years in the Army. And I think it's shaped me. It's just taught me a lot about just like discipline and hard work. And that work ethic was really instilled in me at a young age. My dad also coached Little League football when I was growing up. So that's who really introduced me to like the game of football. And he's still coaching to this day. He's a high school coach in Nashville. So, he's just done a great job of like instilling like hard work and dedication and just trying to always maintain that competitive edge.
How was your dad as a football coach? Obviously, with that background in the military, I can only imagine what that was like for you as a little kid. Growing up.
He was just there to guide me and make sure and hold me accountable and make sure that, I was, working hard because I had dreams of being a pro athlete since I was a little kid. Playing Division I college ball was another big dream of mine. And so he knew this is what I wanted to do. And he just was like, all right, well, this is how you get there. You got to work hard and do like one thing extra per day that's going to get you closer to your dream. And so that's something that I did like as a kid, growing up.
And I was going to say, as a little kid, growing up with those dreams and those aspirations, like how imperative was it to kind of hold that in the back of your mind along that journey? Did it kind of help and make things a little bit easy for you, knowing as you're sprinting up those hills and as you're doing those challenging workouts, like, hey, like this is ultimately, literally and figuratively going to get me where I would like to go?
Visualization is a big thing, not only as an athlete, but in really anything. It's important to like dream big. That's something I always wanted to do, was just dream big and like shoot for the stars. I had this whole shoot for the stars mentality. And if you miss that, you'll land amongst the clouds. And I tried to take that approach like while I was training and while I played Little League in high school and college, always keeping the big picture in mind, but sort of backtracking and realizing like what steps do I need to take in order to achieve that dream or achieve that goal. And so, yeah, when I was working out, running hills, doing extra stuff outside of normal like team activities, I would always just think about like my goal, my end goal, my dream, and I would kind of just allow my dreams to like drive me in that way.
I love that, man. I think it's important for all of us to be dreamers, in some respect. I think that's, at least from my perspective, I'm a fellow dreamer as well, with lots of dreams and aspirations, and still to this day. But I think those have helped. I think no matter how things ended up turning out for whatever it was that I was striving for, I think having that type of mentality really helped me remain positive. I guess I don't know. It helped even if I maybe missed a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just remaining optimistic about the possibilities is important. Obviously, life happens, adversity happens, but if you can look back on your experiences and really try to focus on the good that came out of those experiences, regardless of how they went, I think that's going to help give you like that energy and give you that resiliency to just move forward and bounce back and go into whatever endeavor you have next or go into that next thing that you're working towards. So, yeah, I think just remaining optimistic about the possibilities and being persistent in the face of adversity is something that I've always tried to remind myself of and stay true to.
Who instilled that shoot for the stars mentality? Was that your mom, your dad, a friend, a coach, an extended family member, or maybe was that something that you just discovered on your own?
Yeah, I think it was just like a combination. Like my dad, mom, family members, they really do say it takes a village. And I think, just different like family members through the years, I've just looked at their example. I looked at my grandfather as an example on both sides, but on my dad's side, my grandfather, he's pretty much blind in both eyes. And just he's been that way for a while. He's had like cornea transplants and multiple procedures on his eyes to try to revive his eyesight. And just knowing like what he's gone through and struggles he's faced and how he remains positive and he gets up every day and walks in his purpose, or what he believes his purpose is to be. That's just something that I use as like motivation. And I see like how he, fights every day to do things even with his, eyesight and his condition. So just stuff like that. And then also coaches too, like my high school coach, who was a great mentor of mine. I went to high school at Gonzaga Prep High School in Spokane, and Coach McKenna, he's one of the more successful coaches in the state of Washington. I think they won the state not too long ago, and they're always like playoff contenders. And he's just always expressed like, he had like 3 words he would say, or 4, I don't know how many, but he would always say like adversity, how do you respond? And while that's just like a simple message and it's easy to kind of gloss over it, those words are just really like couldn't be more true. It's like adversity happens, but ultimately it's not what happens, it's how you respond to what happens. And so those are just things that have always kind of stuck with me through the years, and just messages from coaches, people who have, communicated positive messages to me. Like I've always kind of just held on to those things and just try to remind me of those voices and those people who have had that influence on me.
Well, your high school football coach, David McKenna, he described you as quiet, humble, the hardest working kid he's ever been around. Why was it so important to conduct yourself in that manner? And how important are these characteristics just for athletes in general?
It just goes back to just that dream I had as a little kid. I grew up watching like Ohio State and, Miami in like the early 2000s with like Willis McGahee and, Maurice Claret and Craig Krenzel. And then as I grew older, I remember when I moved out west, I really started focusing on like Pac-12, like University of Washington, Wazoo, the Apple Cup, and of course like Reggie Bush too, like before that as well. But just like I guess my imagination is something that, has played a big role in that. And just, like I said, just envisioning the end goal and just thinking about the possibilities and listening to coaches and just trying to take what they said to heart and really try to like work hard and go the extra mile. And I think through time, I saw like how my hard work was paying off. And I saw that I actually had potential and I could, really could potentially play Division I football. So I just tried to keep that same mentality through high school. And Gonzaga Prep, it's a pretty like challenging high school. When I first moved out to Washington from Ohio, I can remember like Gonzaga Prep was like, they're a private high school and they like really pride themselves on academics. And like the middle school that I came from previously before going to high school in Washington, it just was a challenge for me to make that transition and such an environment that like is like demands so much academically from their students. But I think it just helped me pay off, or it just paid off in the long run for me, because like I was never really the like smartest or like the biggest or the most like or the fastest or just naturally talented. So I think being put in those environments that like force you to grow and challenge you, I think that's kind of just wired me a certain way to not be afraid to get out of my comfort zone and continue to push and strive to be better going forward.